Welcome everyone to Conversations with Mools and Mel. This week, or rather this month, we've got another special guest. How's it going, Mel?
Pretty good. Going good. Swell.
So we got a special guest. This is our second guest. Last month we had Kill. That was a pleasure. And this conversation should be no different. You know, we bring you interesting people from all different walks of life. And this gentleman right here, he's definitely a very interesting guy. Describes himself as a pro wrestling fan and collector. And I think just by saying that, he's selling himself short because he also is a creator of sorts as well. And welcome to Conversations, Nate, a.k.a. RingSkirts.
Thanks for having me. How's it going, guys?
Going well. Thank you for taking the time out to talk to us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
So, in short, let me just say, I found out about Nate through a wrestling figure podcast that I listened to called Fully Posable.
Okay.
And Fully Posable is a podcast by two brothers who have been collecting their whole lives. And, you know, their passion for collecting figures has led them to doing this show where they cover everything from, you know, classic figures to new and upcoming stuff, retrospectives, things of that nature. And they built this community around their podcast called Fig Life. So if you ever see the hashtag Fig Life on any wrestling figure, you know, tweet or post or something, you know that probably came from them. And they talked about Nate on one of their episodes and some of the stuff that he does. So I gave him a follow, and man, I was not prepared for what this gentleman brings to the table, because not only does he have a very, very impressive collection of wrestling memorabilia, title belts, you know, action figures, you name it, but he has a company called RingSkirts where he manufactures custom ring skirts, steel cages, Undertaker's casket, accessories for the wrestling figures, and most impressively is able to create almost replica sets from the wrestling events of the past, such as WrestleMania, you know, the earlier WrestleManias like WrestleMania 5, or, you know, In Your House, or he's just started sending me some pictures, progress pictures of what looks like the 1997 Monday Night Raw arena. And when I say that these arenas are replicas, I mean, he's got the commentators actually accurate to who was calling the show that night. He has a crowd, guardrails. He builds an entire entrance set that looks like the actual set on the show, you know, flags hanging from the ceiling. I mean, to say that he just does a replica is almost selling it short. So I think during this video, since this is a audio interview, we're probably going to intersplice a lot of pictures of the Wrestle Cave and a lot of his figure photography. But Nate, we got a lot of questions, man.
Fire away.
And it is a pleasure to have you on here. I hope I did a good job introing you.
No greater compliment.
So yeah, we're just gonna get started here. And Mel, I showed you this account. I told you, Mel, you're not a Twitter guy, but I need you to go on twitter.com/ringskirts right now and hit that media roll and look at what this man is doing. And I mean, I was in awe.
And as was I. It's true. He hit me and he's like, yo, you got to check this out. And, you know, I'm a sucker for like true to life recreations of hate to use this word, it's kind of a buzzword, but iconic moments, characters, and things from my wrestling's glory days, many would say. And so this was like fascinating to me completely. So I guess I'll lead off with the questions. Pretty basic question, but what exactly, I guess, spurred you to start doing all this? Because I know that a lot of times it's the absence of things that lead to innovation. And as far as I remember, like growing up and seeing figures like all the way up to now, I've never really seen like actual ring skirts come with like the stock figures and arenas and things that they sell. So what kind of sparked the idea that, hey, maybe I should try making these or doing these?
I mean, you hit the nail right on the head there. As a kid growing up, there was an absence of that. And with my toys as a kid, I wanted it to be as authentic to the real thing as possible. And I remember coming to my mom and being like, hey, Mom, you got a sewing machine. Can you sew some of these for me? I don't think it'll be that difficult. And it was one of those things where she said yes. And my mom always had a constant battle with her sewing machine. I mean, I learned how to swear by watching my mom sew. So she avoided it and avoided it. And during the time that she avoided it, one of the wrestling figure companies actually made a few sets of ring skirts for one of the toys. And then after that, they kind of stopped. I still had the idea. My girlfriend at the time, I told her about it. She's like, well, I'm not doing it for you, but I'll teach you how to sew. And she taught me how to sew, and I've been doing it for myself ever since.
Wow. that's a riveting tale. Because
So, Nate, I was wondering, I think you're a little bit older than me. How long have you been collecting? And do you have a preference in terms of like LJN, Hasbro, Jax, Mattel, something else? Or, you know, do you not really have a preference in terms of that?
Yeah, I definitely have a preference. So I was born in '83. A lot of people look at my collection and they'll say, well, how did you get all that? And unlike a lot of collectors, my story is that I started collecting when I was probably about 10, and I never stopped. Okay, I never got out of wrestling. I never got out of wrestling figures. So it's easy to have a massive collection if you don't get rid of it all and have to start over again. So I grew up in pretty much the Hasbro era, and that was my bread and butter.
Okay, I was born in '87. So when I first started collecting figures, Hasbro was right on its way out.
Okay.
So when I was watching regularly, started like probably end of '94, early '95. So at this point, we're in a transition period and we're about to get the Jax bone crunching action.
Right.
So the bone crunching action and the Titantron Jax were the figures that I grew up with. So I have a nostalgic preference to those, but I suppose like an aesthetic preference to the Mattel figures that are coming out now. Just objectively, I think these are the best figures they've ever made. But I don't have that, cachet of having actually grown up with the Mattel figures that, they all started coming out, in 2010?
Yes.
So in 2010, I'm already a grown up, so there's a different attachment to it.
Uh-huh.
But in terms of the design, they're just way, way out there for me. Like the best.
So here's my parallel story. I don't consider being a grown up a reason to avoid toys. I never have.
and I'm the same way. Yeah.
It's never stopped me and never will. Any
Oh,
relationship
to be
I've
clear,
been in.
it's never stopped me either. It's just
Okay.
that feeling of being a kid and going to the store and looking at the pegs. I still figure hunt to this day, but sometimes it's just, due to time, I have to just figure out, okay, if there's something I really want, I'm going to have to order it online because I'm on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard on Fully Posable, some of the distribution issues out here are kind of intense. So you know, I still love collecting figures, and I won't really ever stop, I don't think. But there was something about just being a kid and these characters feeling larger than life,
True. Yeah.
you know, and seeing, I mean, listen, I popped big when they did the Viscera Undertaker 2-pack with the glow in the dark Undertaker and the SummerSlam 99. And if they recreated that today and put it out as a Mattel set, I would pop just as big, probably.
So let me
But
give you my perspective on that whole transition to Mattel.
yeah,
I was so deep into the Jack stuff, with the classic superstars and everything. The big thing for me as a collector is keeping things in the same scale. So
right.
when we moved from Hasbro to bone crunching, the change in scale was like, oh, I got to start over again. And then when we moved from that to the Titantron Live, I was like, oh no, I got to start over again. So from Titantron Live to the Ruthless Aggression, that was okay. Those fit in the same world for me.
Right.
So when we're gonna move over to Mattel, I was having like panic. I was like, I have way too many Jax figures for them to go and change the scale on me. So I started, or I attempted to start a letter writing campaign to
Oh,
Mattel from other people saying, I don't care what you guys do. I know you're going to do your own thing. Please keep them in the same scale.
and of course they didn't.
It's close enough, though. It's close
With,
enough that
with
I
the
can deal with
classic
it.
superstars, there are a couple where I've slipped them in on display, and it's just like, whatever, you know, they look close
Yeah,
enough.
it's passable.
But with the Bone Crunchers, I remember once the Titantron set came out, and I saw the scale of those figures and the way they looked and the, you know, how they were posable and everything, I was pissed.
Yeah.
Because I had built up a figure fed of Bone Crunchers.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I wasn't thrilled about having to switch, but I did.
So I think the only reason why I don't have the sentimental attachment to the Bone Crunchers is there was a time when, I mean, I had them kind of stored in a bag, and I remember going and taking some of them out, and a number of them had decapitated each other. All of a sudden,
Oh,
there were
no.
just heads rolling around in the bag, and I was like, "What? I'm not someone that's rough with these things. They have no heads. This is awful. I'm done with these."
Yeah, they were, I mean, really, from like a objective standpoint, they weren't the best. And I remember having a full-on temper tantrum when that aforementioned Viscera figure broke at the waist, and
Oh
my dad
no.
my dad glued it back together for me, but there was like a rattling sound inside of his
Uh-huh.
belly from there on, and I remember just thinking like, Viscera, man, you'll never be what you were.
Wow.
You know,
That
he
that
had quite the
that
run in my
is
fig fed.
that is quite a feat to break Viscera's waist.
Yeah. Um, as far as I go, I would say my story is a lot less glamorous, a lot less respectable. I mean, compared to you two. I'm not sure exactly like which eras my collection would fall into, and I feel kind of silly even calling it a collection because really it was, my parents buying me things for birthday and Christmas because they knew I was a huge wrestling fan. But I would say probably from 98 to 2007. So whatever falls in that window, that's probably what I was playing with and collecting at the time. Um, but I think probably the first figures I remember getting were the ones we looked these up recently. It was like the ones that like sweat. They would have like
Oh
sweat
my
action.
God.
Yeah.
The maximum sweat.
Those. It was those. I had those. Those are the first ones I got. And the last thing I remember like buying or like asking for, I actually got it. It was funny. I think it was 2007. It was actually my brother's birthday. and I convinced my grandma to get it. It was less for him than it was for me. And I was 14 at the time, but I was like, yeah, he really wants like this Hell in a Cell playset. But it was really me that wanted it. Yeah.
Slick.
So like luckily she went with it. And of course, like they couldn't call it that in Toys R Us, like Hell in a Cell. So it was just like the Cell is what it was called.
The Cell, yeah.
Yeah, I was so excited and I put it together. But the tragedy of that is like, you know, I wasn't as ginger as I should have been with things, and we had a dog too. So like when a dog gets a hold of one of those figures, it's just bite marks and just like the torsos, and it was a nightmare. But that was kind of like the end for me.
Sounds like a Kennel from Hell match.
Yeah, basically. I'm sure I could have worked it into the story.
So, full disclosure, I'm actually looking at a constructed Jack's Hell playset right now.
Oh, okay.
That's built in my room where I am.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's awesome. Cool. Yeah, that was like probably the biggest and best purchase I made. Like,
now you had the $1 million belt, Mel, with
I had
the
that too.
DiBiase the 2-pack of the belt and the figure.
Yeah, my dad got me that. I think it was like 2005 or 6. Yeah, it came with like the $1 million.
That was definitely 2005. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was very cool.
And that thing, even loose, is quite valuable nowadays.
Yeah, we were just looking that up, and I was like, oh my god! Like of course, there was no way for me to know then that it was gonna be like that, but I'm sure it's somewhere lying around because like I never threw any toys I ever had away, so it has to be somewhere like in my dad's garage or something. But yeah, that's probably the extent of my story as far as collecting. And I feel like now, because Moles is like the big collector, he's always telling me I'm sort of living vicariously through him and like what he's searching for at the moment, what's coming out like in the next coming months and things like that. So
to be fair though, Mel, when I was looking for this Bob Backlund, Mr. Backlund exclusive,
I got real invested in that.
I mean, there's been times where, because Melvin lives in Illinois,
yeah.
So if I'm looking for something, I'll tell him like, hey, check the pegs for Sherry, check the pegs for Mr. Backlund, and if you happen to see them, you know, I'll shoot you some money right now, and if you can pick it up for me, that would be great. So I've gotten, you know, not, and that goes back to, once again, to put them over fully posable, you know, this Fig Life community. I have some dudes who I've never met in my entire life. They threw something up on there, hashtag Fig Life, you know, the Good Brothers, they retweeted it, and, you know, we make a deal right then and there, no bullshit, no scalping. And, you know, I end up making friends with these dudes. Like, they're actually cool people who stick around, and it's not just a transaction. You know, we follow each other, talk about wrestling sometimes, and they've really helped foster an awesome community. And, you know, with everyone out there hunting, it feels like, you know, something is definitely kind of bubbling back up where wrestling figures are becoming a hot thing again.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I would think probably with like, of course, the internet rising in like the state it is today compared to like, you know, the turn of the millennium, that helps facilitate a lot of that. But like I noticed, like especially like YouTube, you know, you have like figure channels and people showing off their collections. It really helps bolster that sense of community. Like, you know, I have a couple of uncles who collect figures now, and you know, they started like maybe a couple of years ago, but like I know they started because of things they were seeing and hearing on the internet, and they're like, that's pretty cool, I'm gonna start doing that. And I can definitely understand that, because when it comes to Moles, like he would, you know, we talk pretty much every day, and like there was a period where he was always telling me like Mr. Backlund, like I'm looking for this Mr. Backlund, and like one day it clicked. It's like this is like, because he was like frustrated because like every time I go out I can't find it, and I'm like, you know what, I want to start looking for this thing because I'm intrigued now. Like this is eating at me too now, because like I'm hearing about it and I'm like, I'm starting to think maybe he doesn't exist. Like maybe Mools is going crazy and made up this figure in his head. So like I start checking all of my local Walmarts, and one day it was there. It was actually there,
Oh,
and
you found it.
I found it, and I was like, "Oh my
The
god!"
glory.
Yeah, it was incredible, like the thrill of the hunt. And I'm like,
It is the
"Yo,
thrill
it's
of the hunt,
here!"
yeah.
Like it's here, and he couldn't believe it. He sent me the money immediately. I bought it. I sent it to him like next day, I think, or within a couple of days, and that was awesome. Like to see it in person.
It's instinctive. I think it's born with us to want to hunt things, and when we
Yeah.
finally find something we're trying to hunt. The last time I had that big feeling was Mattel released the retro line, which are like the Hasbros.
Yep.
So I was hunting just the classic ones. The first ones that were released were that Warrior and that Undertaker. And I'm with my wife. We're in Walmart, and I'd been stopping at Walmarts for months and months and driving her nuts. And she's like, I don't want to go to another Walmart. And we walk down the aisle, and I see that Ultimate Warrior, and I let this fangirl scream out. And for like a fraction of a second, I was embarrassed. But then the rest of the time, I was just like adrenaline and excited. I was like, I got it.
Right.
Got it.
I completely can relate with that series, the first retro series, because I wanted them all. I didn't care what came after it. I'm just like, man, this first, Roman, Brock, Undertaker, Warrior, Kevin Owens, John Cena, need that set. And when I really marked out like that, like a kid again, I've been looking for this Doink the Clown, Razor Ramon, Alundra Blaze, and Shawn Michaels, flashback set at Walmart so I could make the Heartbreak Hotel. And I wanted it so bad ever since I saw the pictures. And knowing my luck out here in California, I was probably not going to find him. And by the good grace of the figure gods, I show up one day after weeks of looking for this stuff. Can't find any of them. And they're all there at once.
Wow.
So that was awesome because I really, really wanted to make that set. And just to kind of riff on that a little bit, I was wondering what would be your dream figure to walk down the aisle and see this thing on the pegs, right now, whether it's a elite or a retro. What is one figure that you feel like you would like to see and would make you really, freak out like you were a kid again?
Are we talking something that exists or something that doesn't exist?
Doesn't exist yet. So it's never been made, never, not announced yet. So, we know that there's like a Gorilla Monsoon coming that looks awesome. Mm-hmm. We got an Attitude Era big show that looks really cool. We know these things are in the pipeline. Something that's completely out of left field that if you saw it, instant purchase, your dream figure.
I guess for me right now, I've always been a fan of the obscure, of kind of like not even the B characters, but like the C or D characters. So if I walked and I found like referee Earl Hebner or a Dave Hebner, a classic Earl or Dave Hebner, or both of them in a 2-pack, in those blue shirts with the bow ties.
Awesome.
That would do it for me.
That would be incredible.
Probably not the most popular answer, but that's my answer.
No, I'm into it.
Yeah.
You could recreate the screw job. You could do a lot of things with it.
Absolutely.
Now for me, I'm thinking, I don't want to, all right, my instant, right now, the thing I'm thinking is possibly in the pipeline, and I hope it happens, is a 1995 Jeff Jarrett. He's back with the company. He is an employee of the WWE. He's not off at GCW and AAA. He's in WWE. Now is the time to get him in the video games to do a toy of him. So I'm not going to say Jeff Jarrett because I feel like that is already a strong possibility.
It better be.
To that end, I'm also not going to say the new Daniel Bryan with the hemp organic championship or this Firefly Funhouse iteration of Bray Wyatt because I assume they're going to get made. So my pick is Waylon Mercy.
Oh, yes.
I would love to see a Waylon Mercy flashback with, the white tank top with the white pants, the Hawaiian shirt, and the cross between his eyes. That's all I want.
Mm-hmm. I know what you mean.
Mel,
Oh, me?
dream figure.
Dream figure for me, huh?
Even if it's for like a specific match, like a wrestler you like that they've made a figure for, but maybe there's a specific attire or match that you want to represent.
Wow. Huh. I want to be careful because I'm not as well versed, so I don't want to. Hopefully, I don't pick anything that actually exists.
Well, here's the thing: if you do, you got to buy it.
Wow.
Ooh.
Huh. I think. I'd probably just gonna actually I think we discussed this, so I'm kind of cheating because I know they don't. F at all, they made like the Godfather with like a pack of the Godfather and his quote hose. I would love that. But I know that the issue would be in like the phrasing, like how would they present them? So yeah, I don't know. But if they somehow were able to figure that out, I'm definitely there for that.
What if they made a Godfather and his lady friends?
I think they would market it as The Godfather. It'd be a holiday set. The Godfather and his train.
Right, something like that. Yeah, I would definitely buy that. I would buy that. Yeah, without hesitation. I guess I'll use that as like a segue. So sort of back to what you do as far as these custom items and skirts and things of that nature. What would you say has been your favorite project so far? Whether like recreating like a pay-per-view set or like a specific skirt or really any object, anything at all. What's like the thing you've had the most joy putting together?
So I think, gosh, there's a number of different things I'm pretty proud of, but probably near the top of the list is I recreated the WrestleMania 4 Trump Plaza Arena. And that just turned out, I mean, so much better than I even imagined it.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten so many people complimented on photos saying, I thought this was a photo from the event until I blew it up. And I was like, you know what? If that's what you're saying, that's the greatest compliment I can get.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, and that's like the level of attention to detail that Nate puts in to the work that he does. I mean, it's not like I've seen people, and this is not to discredit anyone because everyone is here having fun, enjoying their hobby, and I'm not saying this to down anyone, but I've seen people put together arena sets before. They do a pretty good job. They get the barricade, they get the mat, they might have like the entrance set like pre-matted or something like that. This is on a whole nother level.
Yeah, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. You referred to me at the beginning as a figure photographer. I don't consider myself a photographer. That's probably my biggest weakness, the whole taking the pictures part. My strength is the sets, and that's what I do. Another thing that
I've seen, sorry to cut you off, but I've seen like figure photographers who do like incredible lighting and they spend hours in Photoshop doing that stuff. That's like also on another level. But in terms of what you're doing, I would say like almost figure architecture.
Yeah. If only I had the skills of those photographers too.
Well, with that being said, like I guess what you were saying, like strengths and weaknesses. What would you say is the most difficult aspect of like the construction? Is it like when it's all set up, like the photography, or is it like finding the accurate logos for whatever project you're working on, like the actual physical labor of like sewing and things like that, what would you say is the hardest part of it all?
First off is inspiration. I mean, I have to be inspired by something that kind of pulls at me, and like an event or a time that I was emotional to care enough to notice those details.
Right.
The second big thing is like coming up with a plan and finding the materials, because what I'm trying to recreate, I'm trying to recreate things that actually exist, but I have to find materials that are on such a shrunken scale.
Right.
Okay. So, for example, I've made another one of my things that I made that's pretty phenomenal is I made a War Games double cage. And the thing that prevented me from doing that for years was trying to find a scale mesh cage material. And once I found that, I was off.
Huh. Okay, so well, I actually didn't consider that. So sometimes like the holdup is just in the actual material, like it being of a scale that you
Unavailable.
can actually work with. Like, yeah, waiting for the technology to sort of catch up with the aspiration.
Yeah. Or knowing what I'm looking for. I mean, sometimes the materials exist and I just don't know what it's called.
Right.
A lot of times I'm using materials that, believe it or not, aren't used to make accessories for toys. They're used for other things.
Right.
Well, to that end, I was going to ask you, how often do you find yourself buying figures that are not wrestling figures but are there to serve that purpose?
Very rarely, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of
most-
like putting people in the crowd or stage hands or stuff like that,
They're pretty much all old wrestling figures that I have. I mean, that's what I do with like a lot of the old Titantron Live figures. I'll use them as stage hands and stuff like that.
and then on average, how long do you think it would take you from, coming up with the idea and the inspiration of, I want to make this arena and this set to completion?
Well, of course, it depends on the individual set. Each one, some of them take more time, some of them take less time, some of them take more time than I expected. I'll go by the current one that you mentioned. I'm making a Raw's War era entrance stage and set. And I started thinking about this probably a year and a half ago.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't find the right material. I found the right material around the beginning of May. And as soon as I got it, I started working on it. And I'll probably be done with it now within the next 2 weeks, I hope. So that's another barrier, is time. It takes time. It takes patience.
Right. Okay. Wow. I can relate to that actually as a musician. There are times where like Moles and I, being like the executive producer of the music I make, a lot of times where we'll sort of conceive an idea like, a year or two in advance of actual execution. Like we're just now coming off of like this thing where we were putting together a rock album. And like I'm not like traditionally a rock artist. Like I'm really trafficking in like the pop space right now, but like I made a song a couple of years ago that was more in the realm of rock, and he was like, let's actually hold on to this, because like later on down the road, like we can flesh this out and maybe build more songs around it. So like I know what it's like to have an idea and sort of have to wait for nature to like play out.
Right, or for the raw materials to come and become available to you, basically.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing, now that I think of it, one of the difficult things is the patience. I mean, I have the tendency to want to start a project and finish it immediately. But a lot of these projects you can't finish immediately. And you learn through trial and error. If you rush through something, the results show it.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, you could say that again.
Yeah, I know. I know all about that.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah.
You know, but you got to take your time no matter what you're doing, whether it's music, whether it's building sets for action figures, whether it's, you know, doing freaking plumbing and electrician work, whatever it is, you got to take pride in what you do and, you know, go through it slowly and enjoy the process. You have to kind of learn to enjoy that process, which is, you know, sometimes feels like I'm the same way. Like we're working on an album right now. I want the album to be done and I want to listen to it.
Yeah.
But we're
And
not
do you,
there yet. So you just kind of have to let it go through the motions and enjoy that process of creating it.
I don't know about you guys, but I find that like when I'm creating it, I'm kind of on a high and I'm so driven and I'm so driven to get to the finish line. And always, once I get to that finish line and it's created, there's always that feeling of, oh, now it's done. I kind of wish I was still creating it.
Yeah, there's that emptiness. You want to get right back to doing things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's like when that moment hits, I look up and it's like, what's next? Because like, yeah, I'm just like, all right, I have to do something else now because it's just like, right.
And that's the thing. When you share something with the rest of the world, you put it out there, you know, whether it's what you're doing, Nate, where, you know, you take all these pictures, you show the world, here are all the, like you recreate dozens of matches that took place in that arena. At that point, you've given it to the world that no longer belongs to you. What's going to drive you to your next destination?
Yeah.
So back on the action figure tip, who is someone, in your opinion, that from, you know, Jax to Mattel or from Hasbro to Jax, who's someone who you think they've always got wrong? Whether it's the facial scan, the attire, the scale, the build.
Let me think. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now. I guess I'm too positive.
Can I think
Do
me
you
and
have,
Mel, I think we have the same answer.
Well,
give
yeah.
me some
While you
examples.
think of that, yeah. Well,
1, 2, 3. The
The
Rock.
Rock. Yeah, it's The Rock for sure. I'm a huge Rock fan
Uh-huh.
since childhood all the way up until now. And I feel like that would even extend to the video games a lot of times. I feel like they never quite get him right, whether it's his like actual body structure, his face. It's usually the facial scan. It's just like never quite right. And it's always bothered me because I figure like here's a guy who's like massively popular. You know, there are photos of him everywhere. Like, how difficult could it be like to get him right? But I don't know. Like there's
Well,
always something
there's
off.
that SH Figure Arts Japanese figure of The Rock, which in pictures looks like they
The
did
best.
get it right,
But
but you
the
get the
scale
toy
is
and the
so
scale is like a freaking Bandai Transformer tiny little figure.
yeah. Yeah, like you got that. In
He's
like a
got like a
famous
Callisto build, dude. They got him looking like my Callisto basic.
photo.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
those figures were really small.
What a bummer. I mean, they from the pictures they look like they had a home run with those, but hey, what can you do?
Yeah, with most of the modern figures, I'm generally pretty satisfied. The last Mattel figure that I really, really hated was that Usos set, which was one of the first ones with this face printing technology.
Uh,
Is that the white Usos before they redid them?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that was bad.
and they just looked like they looked like blow up dolls. No,
wow.
not that I know what an Uso blow up doll looks like, but apparently I do.
Hey, listen, we all have our things.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, I guess this is sort of in the realm of that. It's definitely in the realm of wrestling, but this is something I guess hasn't really made an appearance in the figure world, and I don't know if it ever really will because I think the technology might be a little expensive. But how do you feel about the actual real life WWE switch, sort of from like the RingSkirts to this whole like LED thing they have going on now, because like I prefer the skirts, you know, of course for nostalgic reasons, but also I feel like this whole LED thing now is kind of like it gives it this like sterile sort of like ESPN-ish presentation. It's like
I'm
not
with you.
okay, cool.
I I I don't know. It doesn't look sterile to me. It's just too much. It's like
Yeah,
it's ADHD Times Square distracting.
right,
I shouldn't be staring at motion graphics on the side of the ring. I should be
right.
staring
As
at what's going on in the
it,
ring.
exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
you notice, Nate, like if you saw the Evolution pay-per-view that they did at Nassau Coliseum, the all-women's show,
Uh-huh.
where they had like minimized production, or even the most recent NXT Takeover
Right.
25 from Bridgeport, it was minimized production. And I much prefer when the crowd's not fully lit, you know, when the match seems to have a more intimate, a grittier feel to it. And I don't know why they don't do more shows like that with the scaled down production,
It
but
helps.
you know,
It,
they love these, you know, like you said, Times Square is the perfect way to put it. I don't know what the deal is.
it helps you to focus, I think, on what's important. Another example, I think, a lot of the UK shows, if Raw or SmackDown goes to UK, I think a lot of times they might not have as much of the technology there.
Right.
I even noticed it if you guys watched the Rumble this year. It was out of the ordinary to see a WWE pay-per-view without a big stage.
Right.
Right. It was flat, right? There was no stage.
They just kind of walked up out of the dugout.
Yeah,
And
because
it
they
was
were
just
where in
like,
Arizona, right? At the Diamondback
yeah,
Stadium.
it was minimal. It was old school. It felt different.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more of it, honestly.
Yeah, I think we all would.
So, in terms of the current product, WWE, like you're still watching regularly, or you just watch pay-per-views? You're more tuned into the, you know, indie scene, AEW? Do you stick to the more lapsed fan 80s and 90s stuff? Where are you at with wrestling these days?
I watch the current product regularly. I try to watch Hulu's version of Raw every week. SmackDown, I try to. I don't always get to it. I watch the pay-per-views. I just don't have the time for much indie stuff, and I'm going through old school stuff right now. I'm going through like classic. I'm in 1986 championship wrestling episodes from TV.
Ah, cool.
That's been fun.
Yeah, I think I'm not like at the point where I notice like a lot of people are like so cynical. It's almost as if, oh, it's like, you know, there's nothing good happening at all. I think there are plenty of great things happening in the modern day product. I wish there was more, of course, naturally. Like I'm a real big fan of Bray Wyatt's whole deal right now. I thought Leo Rush was doing pretty cool before I guess he got taken off the TV. I'm a big fan of characters and character development and building and you know a good promo and really stakes. I like for matches and storylines to have stakes and
You are
certain
you
entertainment value.
you're speaking my language. I mean, I try not to. I don't tear apart the product. I generally like it, and you just mentioned two of my favorite things. I mean, the stuff Bray Wyatt's doing now, I think is incredible. And
Absolutely. I love it.
to see a manager back on regular TV
Right.
who irks me and makes me want to grab him by the throat and slap him, Leo Rush was doing awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I love that's what I love about wrestling. I don't but here's the thing. With WWE, they present 5 hours of main roster television a week. You know, more if you watch main event, which sometimes I do. Because I'm a psychopath. And the thing is that it's a show where there's a lot of stuff that I think is boring sometimes, like just straight up athletic competition, which doesn't interest me. I'm not even a big sports fan to begin with. And I like television and movies and music and all different sorts of things. And Wrestling speaks to me on the character level, the music, the entrance, the storylines, the vignettes, all that stuff. So Bray, big fan of him, big fan of this R-Truth 24/7 thing. You know, anything that's like Mel said, entertainment is what speaks to me. Um, I just don't. I don't care. This is going to maybe get some heat with people, maybe not. I don't know. I don't care about what's going on outside of the WWE because usually, and maybe AEW will be different in this regard from what they've said, maybe not, but I find it hard to follow. Like there are guys that obviously are like interesting, and if I saw them live, I'm sure I'd have a good time. But I don't understand. Like, I need prepackaged vignettes to understand who these people are. I need video packages about the stakes of this feud and what's actually happening. What's the story behind all of this? If it's just two guys in a ring, it doesn't really do much for me.
Yeah, it's like you're going to the party where everybody else is in on it, but you quite don't know what's going on yourself.
And the thing is, I talk to some people and they say, "Oh, I hate the hokey shit. I just want to see Cesaro and Ricochet tear it up for 20 minutes." Well, to me, that's the time for that. I like to go to the bathroom and make popcorn. But like that's why WWE is like a damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of proposition because they're not going to have a show that for the entirety of the 3 hours or the 2 hours that you're going to like every single thing you see. You just have to take the good with the bad. And to me, like everyone running into panic mode right now about it, like there's plenty of good stuff to like on the show. There's also, I'm sure a laundry list of complaints as well, but I think it's fine. I don't take it that seriously. I enjoy it for what it is.
Clearly, they're making plenty of money, so things are going just fine for them.
Right.
It's all depends on how you're framing your goals. I'm sure WWE's goal isn't to please every single type of fan all the time because that's a goal that you're going to fail at every time.
Right.
Their goal is to please each segment some of the time, enough to keep them kind of strung along and entertained enough.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. I mean, I'm sort of we'll go ahead.
Yeah, here's a analogy that I kind of use for myself, which is if I say to you, think of the most successful beer that exists, what do you think of?
Probably something like Budweiser.
Yeah, Budweiser. Yeah. So if you go to a beer fan and you tell them that Budweiser is the most successful beer, they're gonna like browbeat you to death and say
Right.
Budweiser's an awful beer. It has no flavor. It's tasteless, watered down garbage. It's like, okay, yeah, and I get you like your IPA, but guess what? If you look at the masses, this is the one that appeals to the most people, and that's kind of what WWE is.
Right. I feel the same. We talk about this all the time. Of course, through making music, it's always thinking about demographics. Who would this appeal to? And we always talk about this with like fast food too. Like McDonald's has it's McDonald's. It's
McDonald's is the GOAT. It's not about who's going to kill McDonald's. Like Wendy's isn't going to kill McDonald's. Burger King's not going to kill McDonald's. Subway wasn't able to kill McDonald's. McDonald's is McDonald's. Everyone else is fighting for number two.
Right. Yeah. It's like, of course, it's easy to take shots at them, and it's like, oh, I can't believe I'm eating McDonald's. But it's like everyone eats or gets something from McDonald's, whether it's coffee or a salad or a burger.
Like, and Bobby Flay came out with his own like upscale burger chain. Do they have great burgers? Yeah. Are they going to outsell McDonald's? Highly unlikely.
Right. Exactly.
And also, I mean, for me, it's the two-pronged issue of one, I find indie wrestling hard to follow across so many different promotions with no tangible story going on. I watched an episode of Being the Elite. It seems like a lot of inside jokes. You know, I'm content with stuff not being for me, but I'm also, strapped for time. I don't have that much time to dedicate to pro wrestling every single week. And with that time I do have, I want my McDonald's, I want my Coca-Cola, I want my Budweiser.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. If I was 10, 12 years old and didn't have a life outside of watching wrestling, I would consume everything there was 24 hours a day. But I mean, I live in a world where I have stuff to do. I have a wife who doesn't like wrestling, so I have to watch things that aren't wrestling. So I can't follow it all.
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's not good stuff.
Right.
Oh no, not at all. And just because it's not geared towards my taste necessarily, I'm not going to sit here and discount it, you know. But at the same time, I watched AEW Double or Nothing. I made a point to do so because of all the buzz and the hype and wanting to really give these guys a fair shot. And what I came away with was this is more like WWE than I think people are going to give this credit for, because once again, they present a variety show where, you know, if you're not a fan of the, you know, the Kenny Omegas, the Young Bucks, the Codys, you got the Dustins, you know, you've got Chris Jericho, you've got these guys that you grew up on. They're here. And it's not all that different at the end of the day. I just don't have the time for it. And I got invested. I thought that, you know, as I was sitting there critiquing the show, watching for production flaws and things like that, to tell myself, well, this is no competition to WWE. I see this Cody and Dustin match and everything kind of like goes to the wayside for that. Like, I highly enjoyed that match. And that's to say they made something on their variety show that I thought was good. But to create a wrestling promotion that's completely calcified in one direction is never going to exist.
To be fair, though, to go back to what you said earlier, I think part of the big reason why you like that match, and it's the same reason why I had an interest and investment in that match too, was you already knew those characters. You didn't have to watch that promotion to know who Dustin and Cody Rhodes were.
Right.
You knew that from WWE.
Right.
And yeah, and all that emotion and seeing Dustin given that kind of, you know, stage to have a match like that, that only means so much because of, I mean, honestly, his run for the last couple years in WWE have been truly underwhelming. And you do feel like, okay, he may have been like creatively stifled to the point where, you know, especially after his brother left, he wanted to get out of there and really tell a story that's years in the making. I mean, it goes back to an episode of, you know, WCW Saturday Night or something where, you know, Dusty is telling Dustin the same thing that Dustin told, or Cody told Dustin. So, I mean, it's storytelling that's damn near 25 years in the making. So it's, you're right. That's why I was invested.
Yeah. Which
But
is
hey,
smart. I mean,
I give them all the credit in the world, exactly, for running that, because that's the kind of match that gets someone who grew up with Dustin, whether as the Natural or Gold Dust, to look and say, hey, I might want to give this a shot. So kudos to them. Wish them the best. And we're about to get out of here. Mel, you got any more questions?
Oh yeah, I did have one more question. I was sort of saving till the end. And I say this in complete seriousness because I consider it all the time. With all of the figures you've collected and the sets you've built and the skirts you've made and the custom coffins and everything in between, do you ever get the urge to play with them? Because I know I do. I'm 26 and I walk through the aisle sometimes and like I just want to bust them out and play with them in the aisle. Like, you know, and I don't know if that's crazy or what, but it's just, I know like with someone like you who has such a massive collection, I mean, the possibilities are endless, the kind of matches you could run and rivalries and feuds you could set up. I don't know. I just figured I'd ask because yeah.
I have been completely transparent about this for the last 30 some years of my life. Absolutely, yes.
Okay,
I never
awesome.
stop playing with my toys.
Awesome.
I open up toys because toys are meant to be played with.
Right.
Is it crazy? I don't think it's crazy. And I'm a psychologist, so I can tell you if it's crazy. easy or not. It's fun.
Right.
Playing video games is playing.
Right.
What's playing with a toy? It's manipulating something physically. It's creative. It's fun. Absolutely.
Awesome.
I sit on the ground and I play with toys.
Yes.
I just started a couple years ago taking photographs of it in the meantime.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
That's
and
the
I can
easiest
say
question
as
you've
a-
asked me all night.
as a loose collector, that I could definitely speak to that as well and say, yeah, I do play with them with respect to the beautiful resin paint jobs that they do at Mattel. I mean, they're meant to be taken out of the package. They're meant to be handled, and they're meant to be loved. And we have one of the great lovers of figures with us today on Conversations. Nate, if you have anything to plug, please, the floor is yours. Guys, all the episodes of Conversations available a week early on the Patreon, but this is about Nate tonight. Nate, thank you so much for joining us. You were awesome. And if you have anything to plug, please, we're all ears.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. This was really fun. If anyone out there is interested in seeing some of the things that I've created, the best place to check me out is at RingSkirts on Twitter. I have some on Instagram, but really Instagram is where my Twitter leftovers go. In addition, if you're interested in the whole wrestling figure community, give Fully Posable a listen. They're a great show. They're a great way to kind of dip your toes in and learn a lot about the community and the hobby.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sure to be running examples of your work in the video version of this as we're speaking, so they can see all of that as we're discussing it. And yeah, I want to agree with Moles. It's been excellent having you. Definitely a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Let's be completely honest. Just like we ended, it's not work, it's play.
Great. Yeah, I agree.
Nate, thank you again so much. I hope you have a great day.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.